Gohan takes center stage as we get ever so closer to the debut of the Tournament of Power, and Gohan having to be taken under Piccolo's wing and training him to become better than how he was before, and having Gohan face great obstacles to allow him to become great as he once was, with Piccolo having to reshape Gohan and becoming the greatest he can possibly become. After having to face years of neglect within Dragon Ball Super, Gohan finally takes stage as he prepares to become great as he once was before. What's going on, Dragon Ball Super fans? Welcome to my Dragon Ball Super episode 88 review entitled Gohan and Piccolo Trainer and Pupil Clash in Max Training, leading into Dragon Ball Super episode 89 next week, and what will be the final preparation steps in gathering everyone together for the tournament, ever since having to witness what he did in Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, having to essentially not do anything during the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament and during the Goku Black arc. Finally, Gohan prepares to head into the greatest battle that he will ever face, with that having to train with Piccolo. So a quick plug before we begin, in case you guys are not following me at Twitter, be sure to go ahead and head over to UnrealEntGaming on Twitter and hit that follow button. That way you guys are always in the loop with all the latest in Dragon Ball news, information, and content. And don't forget to go ahead and subscribe to the channel in case you guys are new for all the latest in Dragon Ball reviews, discussions, mod battles, and more. Tons of awesome content on the channel. And if you guys want to go ahead and keep up with all the latest content, go ahead and turn on notifications if you guys want to become a Super Saiyan God. It greatly means a lot to me that you guys support the channel, and I thank you guys for tuning into the video. Now, Dragon Ball Super episode 88 showcases exactly the very person that we've been wanting to see be relevant in the show for a very long time now, that being Gohan, and having to see his battle with Piccolo was just absolutely astonishing to see, because it brings you back to the good old days of what Dragon Ball Z was, with Piccolo having to train Gohan and having to teach him ever since he was a young boy. And that's what primarily what this episode was about, and Piccolo knowing why Gohan came there and having to reshape him and remold him into the fighter that he once was, even becoming better than how he ever was prior to that. So we start the episode off exactly where we left off, with Gohan having to spar with Piccolo early on, and let me just say, Piccolo was countering all of Gohan's attacks, and it looked pretty cool visually, because we see how Gohan is trying to strike Piccolo, and Piccolo knows all about the exhibition match from the other universes and all of them having to be destroyed. And we see a flashback where Piccolo actually asks Goku about Gohan, in which he said he did okay during the exhibition match, but Goku thinks that he should be way more powerful than what he is now. So even prior to this training, Piccolo was asking Goku about his son, and Goku having to say, well, he did okay. So Piccolo has information on the fact that Gohan just did okay, and the exhibition match proved how weak Gohan was going into this. So Piccolo decided to go ahead and take Gohan under his wing, and we see how Piccolo actually has senzu beans, but he's trying not to use them all up here at this current location, in which Gohan notices that Piccolo does acknowledge the fact that Gohan has gotten weaker, but they still begin to spar anyway in the rain. And visually, I will say, from the beginning of this episode all the way up until the very end, was filled with tension back and forth as Gohan became a Super Saiyan, and we see how once Gohan became a Super Saiyan, he raises his power even more, which I truly enjoyed, because after he became a Super Saiyan, he charges at Piccolo, and if you guys paid attention to Piccolo, we see how well Piccolo was able to catch Gohan off guard as he was about to punch him in the face, but instead he punches him in the gut. And we see the strategic mind being used here by Piccolo, in which I really wanted to see during the Universe 6 battle against Champa's universe, in which I personally enjoyed to see that side of Piccolo. But then we get to see Trunks and Goten changing diapers. They're changing Bra's diapers, with Beerus and Whis still having to be there. And if you look at Beerus's tail, he's very aggravated. He's very impatient, because we see how he's just patiently waiting there for Bulma to get off the phone, in which as Beerus is getting impatient, we see how Whis warns him not to spill the beans about the universe having to be destroyed. Otherwise, Bulma is just going to destroy and simply chew Beerus out for allowing this to even happen, in which he does not want that to happen. But we get to see an engagement between 18 and Krillin, in which didn't really last too long as she knocked him down to the ground. And we see how Krillin says, well, hold back a little, but 18, you know, she's got her eyes set on the prize money, and that's all she really cares about. But then we go back to Super Saiyan Gohan sparring against Piccolo, in which Piccolo actually managed to knock Gohan down several times, which I personally enjoyed to see. Even though I favor Gohan a bit more, I personally enjoyed how we got to see Piccolo not even try against Gohan. And we see how the rain is coming down their face, and we see how both of them are standing there, and in which Piccolo thinks that Gohan instead needs to chill out a little bit instead of being so aggressive, and with that making better decisions instead of running in there and being so aggressive and being so brute with his attacks. So that was pretty cool to see how Piccolo was standing on top of this rock, and Gohan's looking at his hands and he's just trying to concentrate. And with that being said, we see how Gohan thinks that by him being calm, he'll make better decisions decisions and fight a little better if he just relaxes. And we see how there were certain shots midway of this episode where he wasn't so calm, he wasn't tense at all. We see how he's gripping onto the water in his hands, and that kind of threw me back all the way to when Gohan fought Cell, in which we see how Gohan later on begins to power up some more, in which again this throws me back to when Gohan was fighting Cell, because if you look at Gohan's to be on that caliber as how he was before, but I mean there's something bothering him, there's something in the way between Gohan and his emotions, and which is why Piccolo even tells him you have to relax, you have to calm down, instead of being so aggressive, maintain your emotions. In which after that I think we saw something very, very important. Now we get to see Kaba, right, and he's on this one-man little ship and he's driving around in space. Now here's the thing, a lot of us were wondering as to, you know, what really went down or what's happening, you know, over in Universe 6, and what's cool about this is the fact that Kaba thinks that even Hit won't be able to beat 70 people, in which case he goes to get you-know-who, in which he goes off and he lands on this planet, and seeing how Kaba doesn't really even have faith in Hit in stopping 70 other people, he goes for help. Now a lot of us were wondering as to where this unknown mystery Saiyan lady comes from, in which now we have confirmation that yes, according to what's being seen and said in this episode, it looks like when Kaba knocks on the door of his former squad leader, we see how he opens up the door and he says it's been a long time. He shows off his new Super Saiyan powers, which I truly enjoy because hopefully enough down the line we'll get to see more of Kaba and his universe, because this part really intrigued me due to the fact that number one, once Kaba became a Super Saiyan and showed this person as to how strong he had gotten, he tells the leader about the tournament and asks him to enter, but the squad leader actually refuses, and the fact that his legs aren't that good enough, because we see he's holding on to like a cane, and Kaba's trying to persuade him, Kaba's trying to go on ahead and bring him onto the team, in which later on, instead the squad leader suggests his younger sister, which her name I do believe is Cauliflower, so that is her official name, is Cauliflower, as confirmed by Herms98 on Twitter, so that is the quote-unquote female Broly's official name, in which his sister, his younger sister, is going to be the person entering this tournament. So indeed, it looks like that this female Broly character named Cauliflower is going to come from Universe 6. And then we get to see how she appears, and although I must say that in the Dragon Ball Super intro she looks to be very menacing, we see how she's like chewing on a piece of meat, and she looks very, very aggressive. So it is confirmed that that is in fact his former squad leader's sister. She will be entering, and of course we see how she's sitting on like this throne. So there's lots to talk about this, because there was lots of people actually commenting about this and wondering who she was, where she came from, and now we have an official confirmation. So when we go back to Gohan and Piccolo, and you get to see on the ground, there's lots of battle holes. We see like just everything is stomped out to an oblivion. Gohan begins to power up to what I would assume to be a Super Saiyan 2 based on the lightning and the aura around him, and we see how Piccolo doesn't think that Gohan is giving his all into this fight, as we see Piccolo begin to transform, and Piccolo says to Gohan, you certainly are strong, but you have a weakness. And as they begin to engage, we see how Gohan battles Piccolo, and you have to give lots of props to how Piccolo, you know, was able to keep up with Gohan, because how strong Piccolo had become. But there were certain times where Gohan had the edge, and there was this one sequence where Piccolo wrapped his hands around Gohan's neck, around Gohan's arm, and he was choking him. So this was so really, really awesome to see, because Piccolo is, you know, telling Gohan you're not trying your best, give it your all, and he's choking the life out of him, he's squeezing him, and I personally cannot wait to see how Gohan functions during the tournament, because as Piccolo is squeezing Gohan's neck, he begins to choke him out completely until blasting him in the chest, waking him up, and that kind of like pushed him down, you know, from a Super Saiyan, because Gohan went from being a Super Saiyan and getting choked back down to his base form until Piccolo had to wake him up, because obviously he had choked him out momentarily, and that's how good Piccolo had become, and Piccolo having to say Super Saiyan isn't your full power, right? And we see how Gohan remembers, and we have a flashback of Super Buu, and Piccolo says that's not your ultimate power, and Piccolo says physically Gohan is strong, but he doesn't have the right mentality, his mindset isn't really there. Like with Buu, when he fought Buu, he got carried away, but his mindset was there. He's telling Gohan, what happened to your mindset? Your mentality is just all over the place. You have to be functional with how you are physically and mentally. But just as that happened, we see how Gohan begins to power up, and it was the moment we've all been waiting for. We see how Gohan transcends from a Super Saiyan into his ultimate power. Now this is spectacular to see, because we see how even Piccolo was in shock, and Gohan having to burst right through the clouds, and everything Gohan had done at that very point, we see the one hair strain come down his head, and he is indeed now in his ultimate form, the sky begins to clear up and we have the return of Ultimate Gohan. It was something that I personally really did enjoy, because just as that happened, Gohan said, "Piccolo, I won't hold back, so prepare yourself," in which Gohan had no intentions to hold back because he was thinking about Videl, he was thinking about Pan, and in which we see Piccolo now come at Gohan, in which he replicates himself, and it looks like Piccolo had created copies of himself as he charges Gohan, but even then, we see the powers of Ultimate Gohan. He's beginning to knock out all the copies as we see Rapid Blast come down upon Gohan. It was very, very awesome to see, and a lot of us have wondered as to what happened with Gohan this whole time. He cuts off Piccolo's arm by completely smacking him with a single chop, and we get to see the development occur as Gohan begins to talk to Piccolo as they set up like a little campfire, and we see how Gohan says, "Thank you, Piccolo," and Piccolo says, "No, the training is not over yet. Let's see how much stronger you can possibly get after this." And Gohan suggests to work on some combo attacks for the tournament, and Gohan is very apologetic about slicing his arm off and whatnot, and Piccolo doesn't really care, but we see the development between the two to be some of the most deadliest people to look after, because if you see the way Piccolo functions and seeing how Gohan was after he transformed into his ultimate power, we see how they shake hands, and I do think that this establishes that these two are definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with, especially together, and Piccolo tells Gohan it's not over, and I love how the episode pretty much cuts out as we go into the sky, and this episode was just filled with lots of awesome things, and seeing how Gohan functioned, and seeing how Kaba was recruiting for people for help, and we see how the tournament's coming together. We see female Broly, also known as Cauliflower, eating this, massive amount of meat on a bone, just sitting on this throne. So this episode was very, very awesome. I would say one of my favorites in weeks right now, because there was no BS in this episode. Aside from Beerus talking to Whis and Bulma and whatnot, there was no BS in this episode. And even towards the very end, we see Yamcha, and Yamcha's there, and Yamcha's just trying to like practice for his little acceptance speech, and Puara is there, and Puara is like ridiculing him. So but post your comments down below. What are your overall thoughts on Gohan having to train with Piccolo? What are your overall thoughts on the training that they did? What are your overall thoughts on the new contestants having to be shown, and how strong do you guys believe Gohan is going to be going forward in the Tournament of Power? What are your overall thoughts on the overall Dragon Ball Super spoilers that were revealed for episode 90, Gohan x Goku? Comment down below, guys. Thank you all for watching. If you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to go on ahead and turn on notifications by also subscribing to the channel for more news, information, and updates. If you guys enjoyed the review, then be sure to go on ahead and slap a like down below. Post your comments down below on your thoughts on the episode, because I would like to know if you guys agreed or disagreed with me on your overall status on what this episode was. It was a fantastic episode. Obviously enough, I wish it lasted longer, but of course, I think for what it was worth, it definitely gave us relevancy for Gohan's character. So thank you all for watching, guys. Tune back in for the breakdown review and the live stream later on tonight, and I'll be seeing each and every single one of you guys down in the comment section below. Have a wonderful night, guys. Peace.